Ride the signal through the unknown. This is the cryptic current.
Mars is an extremely mysterious place. Years ago, after Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon, many believed that humans would soon be able to land on Mars. However, 55 years have passed, and this dream has yet to come true. Or perhaps it was realized long ago, but we just don't know. One morning 62 years ago, in 1962, US President Kennedy delivered an exciting speech. We choose to go to these places, not because they're easy, but because they're hard. Through this 18-minute speech, President Kennedy won the support of people across America. That is why, 7 years later, Neil Armstrong took the first step on the moon. A small speech for the people, a giant leap for mankind. However, no one expected that in the subsequent space race, both the US and the Soviet Union had campaigns and discoveries that shocked the reality of that mysterious red planet. And even more than half a century ago, the US relied on Nikola Tesla's technology to reach Mars early. So what exactly is this? Today, we will talk about the lively atmosphere on Mars. Hello everyone, I am Miss Ruby. While the world was focusing on the moon, the US and the Soviet Union began a new race, landing on Mars. However, since Mars is farther than the moon, initially, both countries' Mars plans mostly failed. Until 1976, NASA's Viking 1 spacecraft successfully landed on Mars and sent out much data from the planet, including surface images, meteorological data, and chemical analyses. This action angered the Soviet Union, prompting them to accelerate their Mars plan. But their target was not Mars itself, but its moon Phobos. Phobos is the son of the Greek god of war, representing fear. Initially, the Soviet Union did not think this mission was too difficult. After all, the US had successfully landed on Mars. Landing on its moon shouldn't be a big problem. However, reality showed that the name of the god of fear was no joke. There are some things here that they did not want to be seen. Long ago, humans began observing Mars. This planet is the fourth from the Sun, after Earth, seemingly possessing a mysterious power that is hard to resist. Sparkling star. Sparkling. Its brightness constantly changes, making it hard to predict. And because it is red like blood, Westerners call Mars, Mars. This is Latin, the name of the god of war in Roman mythology. In 2004, NASA's Opportunity and Spirit rovers discovered traces of minerals in a crater. Since the formation of this type of mineral requires liquid water, scientists finally confirmed that Mars once had water. Notably, in subsequent missions, NASA was surprised to find that Mars not only had water. In fact, it once resembled Earth with vast oceans on its surface. We all know water plays a crucial role for life, and the reason Earth has water is largely due to its atmosphere. According to scientists, Earth's structure can be divided into the crust, mantle, and core. The core consists of a solid inner core and a liquid outer core, made of iron and nickel. Through the movement of iron and nickel, Earth forms a magnetic field. It acts like a shield protecting Earth. Without the magnetic field, solar wind and cosmic rays would erode the atmosphere, causing it to blow away. Without the atmosphere, Earth's water would evaporate. The key point here is that billions of years ago, Mars also had moving iron and nickel. They generated a magnetic field. But for some reason, one day, Mars's iron and nickel stopped moving. Ultimately, this caused Mars's atmosphere to blow away, and the surface water escaped. Of course, scientists are unclear about the cause of Mars's atmosphere disappearing. Mars is Earth. Mars suddenly losing its atmosphere might be due to nuclear war there. After this battle, the Martians even moved to Earth. Those interested can learn more. After discovering water on Mars, the Curiosity rover continued to find organic compounds in 3 billion-year-old volcanic rocks. Chemically, organic compounds are the foundation of all life. Simply put, we have finally determined that Mars once had life. However, a more accurate statement might be that Mars had living organisms 3 billion years ago. When carefully reviewing the images captured during Mars exploration, we can discover much evidence of Martian civilization. Among them, the first and most important photo can be mentioned. That is the photo of the Martian face taken by NASA's Viking 1 probe in 1976. At that time, this photo caused a global sensation. Shortly after, NASA issued an explanation. They said this was an optical illusion. However, the pyramid at the corner of the face immediately refuted this hypothesis. Because under the influence of natural geography, such a pyramid with edges cannot form. In other words, this is very likely an artificial structure. Moreover, near the pyramid, they also discovered transparent tunnels, making more and more people believe that Mars once had a civilization. And if Mars truly once had intelligent life, then its satellite, Phobos, might also harbor life. Because scientists have long noticed the anomalies of Phobos, they even discovered that the interior of this satellite is very likely hollow. In 1877, American astronomer Asaph Hall discovered that Mars has 2 natural satellites. He named the first satellite Phobos and the second Deimos. They orbit Mars just like the Moon orbits Earth. Actually, comparing them to the Moon isn't entirely accurate, because the diameter of the Moon is 3,474 kilometers, while the average diameter of Phobos is only about 22 kilometers. And Deimos is even smaller, about 12 kilometers. From this, it can be seen that compared to Earth's satellite, the Moon, they are really too small. Initially, astronomers thought these 2 satellites were captured by Mars' gravity. But later they discovered that their orbits around Mars are almost circular, different from the elliptical orbit characteristics typically seen in captured satellites. Additionally, Phobos is only about 6,000 kilometers from Mars, much closer than the 384,400 kilometers distance between the Moon and Earth. It is the natural satellite closest to its planet's surface in the solar system. Therefore, astronomers believe these 2 satellites formed from a collision between Mars and another planet. If the collision hypothesis is proven, we could find evidence of life on Phobos. Because during the collision, much material containing evidence of life could be ejected onto the Phobos satellite. Thus, astronomers place special emphasis on researching the Phobos satellite. But this isn't the only reason the Soviet Union was determined to reach Phobos. In fact, they were eager to go there because in 1959, Soviet astrophysicist Iosif Shklovsky, while observing Phobos' orbit, discovered its rotation speed is unusually fast, taking only 7.6 hours to complete one orbit around Mars, much faster than Mars' rotation period of 24 hours and 40 minutes. Considering factors like volume, Shklovsky believed this speed indicates Phobos has very low density, from which he inferred that Phobos is hollow. He even thought that Phobos has an outer metal layer. In other words, Phobos is an artificial satellite. The important point is that Shklovsky wasn't an ordinary scientist. He had won the Soviet Union's prestigious Lenin Prize, truly a reputable scientist. This point is very special because it means that a highly credible person has frankly told everyone that aliens exist in this world. More importantly, many other astronomers also support Shklovsky's theory, and they are all reputable individuals. For example, Fred Singer, scientific advisor to U.S. President Eisenhower, once expressed his support for Shklovsky's argument that the interior of the Phobos satellite is hollow. Not only Fred Singer, but American astronomer Kirk Edward Sagan, who sent the Voyager Golden Record into space, was also one of the supporters of this theory. Therefore, in 1988, the Soviet Union launched two probes, Phobos 1 and Phobos 2, to the Phobos satellite to find answers. Hereafter we will refer to them as Probe 1 and Probe 2. Within less than 2 months, Probe 1 failed due to a control error. However, Probe 2 was very successful. On March 1, 1989, after 7 months of flight, Probe 2 finally approached Mars. At this moment, everyone at the Soviet Ground Command Center was tense. After all, this was the Soviet Union's most successful Mars mission to date. A few days later, the Soviet Union received images of Mars and the Phobos satellite. Everything was proceeding smoothly. On March 27th, Probe 2 finally reached the space above Phobos. But at this critical moment, the Soviet Command Center discovered that Probe 2's signal became extremely unstable. It even began to rotate. Just a few minutes later, the Command Center and Probe 2 completely lost contact. When this happened, the entire Soviet Command Center became chaotic. Because normally, objects in space move in a straight trajectory, unless affected by gravitational pull, and Probe 2's trajectory was specially designed. So at this point, it couldn't possibly be altered by gravitational forces. Therefore, there was only one possibility. Probe 2 had been hit by something. Strangely, in the explanations following the incident, the Soviet government not only didn't mention a collision but also told everyone that Probe 2's loss of contact was due to a computer malfunction. But puzzlingly, before losing contact, Probe 2 had sent back many photos. And these photos were later classified as confidential by the Soviet Union. This action greatly dissatisfied the 14 countries that participated in the plan at the time. They voiced their protests. Finally, unable to withstand the pressure, the Soviet Union released most of the photos, but still kept 4 photos undisclosed. In 1991, a high-ranking Soviet officer revealed one of those 4 photos. People then discovered that Probe 2 had indeed been unexpectedly attacked by a UFO. In 1991, 3 years after Probe 2 lost contact, at a press conference, Soviet Army Colonel Marina Popovic published the final photo that Probe 2 took while performing its mission. In this photo, a long object could be clearly seen parked right next to the Phobos satellite. Moreover, Marina's statement shocked everyone. Marina said that this long object was an interstellar spacecraft. Knowing that Phobos has a diameter of about 22 kilometers, the length of this spacecraft could very well be up to 25 kilometers. Not only did Colonel Marina publish the photo, but she also recreated the situation at the Soviet Space Command Center on March 27, 1989. Marina said that after the signal became unstable, the command center tried its best to repair Probe 2. But very soon after, Probe 2 lost contact. This left all the experts astonished. They didn't understand why the machinery had such a malfunction. Nevertheless, the condition of probe number 2 had always been very good. Throughout the 7-month flight, no incidents occurred. Why did it suddenly rotate and then lose contact? Until the Soviet Command Center received images from probe number 2. People finally learned that probe number 2 was very likely attacked by a UFO. The key point is that this photo was taken with an infrared camera. Infrared rays can detect the temperature of objects. In other words, optical illusions are impossible. Therefore, after this press conference, the whole world was shocked. Some experts immediately found images taken by probe number 2 before the incident. And they made new discoveries again. In the photo taken on March 1st, before the incident occurred, they discovered large-scale grid-like structures on the surface of Mars. Since the grid showed right-angle distribution, many scholars and UFO researchers believed this could be the ruins of a city. Following this city photo, on March 26th, while photographing the Martian surface, the probe accidentally captured the shadow of a cigar-shaped object. Why call it a shadow? Because we can see through it, faintly glimpsing the ground. Therefore, it's speculated to be a shadow. In other words, at the time of photographing, there was an interstellar spacecraft hovering in the Martian sky. In the subsequent photo, the ground morphology had changed, showing this object was moving. Could this be the very spacecraft that attacked probe number 2? Because the day after capturing the cigar-shaped object, the probe immediately lost contact. According to Colonel Marina, senior Soviet officials believed probe number 2 was attacked by an interstellar spacecraft. It's noteworthy that Marina wasn't. She was the first Soviet female pilot to break the sound barrier, the point where aircraft speed equals the speed of sound. And she had participated in astronaut training in the Soviet space program. Her husband, Pavel Popovich, was a Soviet cosmonaut, the 4th person in the world to travel into space. This information increased the credibility of the photo released by Marina. And if what Marina said was true, that indicate there. It's unknown why they dawn. The key point is, Buzz Aldrin, who landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong, also mentioned the Phobos satellite. He even publicly expressed that. After the Soviet interstellar spacecraft photo in 1988, Mars Global Surveyor probe once again flew through Phobos. This time, the Global Surveyor wasn't attacked, but it captured an extremely astonishing photo. The photo clearly shows a giant monolith with clear outlines, smooth surfaces, and protruding upward. According to expert speculation, this giant monolith is 90 meters long and 85 meters wide. Buzz Aldrin was particularly interested in this discovery, even suggesting NASA should send someone to explore it. Because this isn't the first time humans have discovered mysterious giant rocks. In fact, from 3 years before Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, NASA's unmanned lunar orbiter 2 had captured 8 spire towers as tall as 15-story buildings on the moon. The terrain around the spire towers is very flat, with no volcanic activity. So how did these spire towers form? UFO researchers believe these spire towers were certainly built by aliens. Because on Earth we can also see remains of pointed towers. These pointed towers have existed for about 4,000 to 5,000 years. And if these pointed towers were built by aliens, then what exactly was their function? Mystical scholar David believes that stone pen towers or obelisk monuments were made from entire granite blocks, and granite contains quartz. The applications of quartz in science are very broad. Many electronic products, watch movements, computers, even semiconductors contain quartz. Therefore, David believes that the monuments could be a type of ancient technology capable of transmitting signals and energy. So we can also see it in the ancient Earth's high-tech civilization. At that time, the monument builders might have used them to communicate information. And this could very well be why Buzz Aldrin strongly advocated going to Mars, because he had personally witnessed Martian civilization. In 2011, a video about a secret Mars mission suddenly appeared online. According to the video publisher Lucas Cantombolo, he received 3 revealing letters from a whistleblower. The letters showed that after NASA announced they would no longer go to the moon, they secretly conducted multiple lunar landing missions. We've talked about this content in earlier videos. Interested viewers can look into it further. The key point is the whistleblower also told Lucas that the year after Armstrong and Aldrin landed on the moon, the US and Soviet Union secretly collaborated on Project Red Sun. This was an extremely difficult space mission because their target wasn't the moon but Mars. At this point, many viewers might find this unbelievable, because we've always been taught that the distance between Mars and Earth is very far. Even Elon Musk's Mars migration plan keeps getting delayed. Additionally, with current human technology, we can only conduct one-way missions, meaning that people who go to Mars can only stay there permanently, never to return. Yet this revealing video says humans set foot on Mars 54 years ago. How could that be possible? Luca, the whistleblower, explained that people think this way because we don't know that in 1943, when Tesla died. From Tesla's final handwritten manuscripts, the US discovered key technology that could easily accomplish long-distance space missions. Furthermore, in the revelations of William Hawkins, a top aerospace engineer, who held important roles in the US Naval Intelligence Department, who designed control panels for the Apollo program and personally witnessed the entire Apollo moon landing at the command center, revealed Armstrong accidentally encountered an interstellar fleet during the moon landing, and then later, gradually learned that there were aliens on Mars. That's why the US first cooperated with another superpower, the Soviet Union, to go to Mars. We've previously discussed how in 1970, both US and Soviet Union invested heavily in developing remote viewing capabilities. At that time, many remote viewers reported seeing pyramids on Mars. Some even saw giants on Mars, making these pieces of information seem connectable. Luca continued, in 1973, Project Red Sun was ready. A spacecraft named ISV Columbus launched from a secret Brazilian base successfully. It carried 3 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and the famous Soviet astronaut Vladimir Ilyushin. After 158 days of flight, they finally approached Mars. At that moment, all 3 astronauts were very excited, but right then the spacecraft's equipment was disrupted by unknown signals. Isn't this similar to what happened with Phobos back then? The 3 astronauts immediately reported their situation to Earth. However, at this time, the spacecraft was very far from Earth. After the signal was sent, it took over 20 minutes to reach Earth. And Earth's response also took over 20 minutes to reach the spacecraft. While waiting, the signal interference gradually became stronger. Moreover, the signal seemed to be coming from the same location. This made all 3 astronauts very confused. So Vladimir adjusted the orbital direction to move forward and investigate. And then shortly after, they saw an extremely shocking scene. On a giant crater appeared many groups of buildings. At that moment, the astronauts instinctively picked up cameras to record the scene, but discovered the cameras had problems and couldn't be used. At the same time, through the small portholes, they saw many UFOs appearing beside Columbus. They always fly close to Columbus. Just like when someone intrudes into a nation's airspace, fighter jets will closely follow. The warning is quite serious. And so Vladimir adjusted the flight direction once again while looking for a new landing spot. At the end of this revealing letter, Luca also publicly released a photo of Buzz Aldrin during the Mars mission to prove the reliability of the information. However, some people also raised questionable points. For example, the opening of the revealing video includes footage between Earth and the Moon. But in terms of proportion, this seems to be a serious issue. Earth's diameter is 1/4 of Earth, but the Moon here appears unusually small. Next, the astronaut in the video doesn't seem to resemble Armstrong or Buzz Aldrin. So, about the photo of the spacecraft on the stars near Mars satellite, which we mentioned earlier, is it real? Regarding this point, opinions likely vary. Some believe the photo is fake, but many also think the whistleblower, Lieutenant Colonel Marina, is an exceptionally outstanding figure. In the years she passed away, even the Russian government publicly praised her contributions. Therefore, many people believe what Marina said, thinking that probe number 2 was indeed attacked by a UFO. As for me personally, I believe that even if seeing is believing. There have already been many images and evidence revealed like this, among many such photos related to Mars. Even if only one of them is not an optical illusion, it could already prove that there is civilization on Mars. The only issue is whether you believe it or not. The universe is so vast, perhaps there are increasingly many things we don't know. I hope you all share your thoughts in the comments section below the video. And our sharing for today will pause here. If you find this video or the content on our Marubi channel truly helpful, please share it with a friend to explore together. Thank you all very much. Goodbye and see you again.
If the signal hooked you, subscribe and catch the next ripple.